All right, what's up, guys? We're going to talk a little bit about. It's almost a topwater video, but it's not. It's actually kind of almost the opposite of a topwater video. It's more about like subsurface baits and why they sometimes work better than topwaters, even though they almost mimic the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. There's actually parts in this that I do not know. Like I can't tell you why this is. I can't even come up with a logical explanation of why fish do this and why they don't. But I do know it happens, so I'm at least going to share with y'all. I figured out in these situations. Okay. The other day I went fishing. I was expecting to go blast on them, right? I've been out fishing other lakes and stuff like that, and I just expected to come out to the lake and crush on them, like and fish a shallow hybrid hunter. I was like, this is perfect. I haven't got to do it in a long time. I'm gonna fish all the hybrid hunters. I had some other stuff that I was gonna work with Strike King, whatever. I get out there. Was it good? It wasn't good because I had this like crazy expectation that I was gonna go catch 50 fish and like 30 pounds. I actually caught more fish in the small amount of time I did it than I realized, because even when I went back through the tape, right? So this was the video I put out the other day. It was about the fall turnover. Like I didn't realize the lake was turning over when I got out there. I should have realized it when I went out there and there was like no one at the boat ramp. But I just thought, okay, I don't know why people aren't out here. I went out there and threw this shallow hybrid hunter. Got bit. Okay. Now, I've also been out there this exact same time when I threw a topwater last year and crushed them. Like they were blowing up on topwater like crazy. Something felt off, and I don't know what it was. A lot of times they bite the topwater later on in the day, things like that. A lot of that's because of the shad are schooled up. Okay, so this is all going to tie together. A lot of times this time of the year, when it gets colder in the fall, and you get these cold mornings, the shad aren't very high on top of the surface. As the sun gets up, the shad start rising up closer to the surface. You can see them, little pods of shad everywhere. And the bass usually rise up with them, or they feed higher to the surface. For whatever reason, and I figured this a long time ago out with a wake bait. When I was really younger, wake baits weren't even a thing. But I was with Strike Pro, who was the original designer of the shallow hybrid hunter. Now we license them out from Strike Pro, things like that. It was called the Bubba at the time. They had a wake bait. It was called the Hunchback. Okay. Very hard to get still to this day. I've got quite a few of them. Are they right there? People are going to be jealous about this, but those are my Hunchbacks. Okay. I've still got a whole bunch of them. That's probably not all of them. Start throwing this wake bait. It crushed them for years. It was a hot thing. It was like no one knew about that thing. It still crushes them. It still catches them. What was crazy though is that like it wakes right underneath the surface. Like it actually creates a wake. And I was catching all these fish on it. It was funny too because we were fishing tournaments and my partner would be like, "Oh my gosh, they're eating a topwater." I'm like, "Yeah, throw your topwater out there." Nothing. He wouldn't get a bite. Literally two baits on top of the surface, one making noise on top of the surface, one making a wake. And it was so crazy how they would bite one on like right there. We're talking that much of a difference. And I was going, what's the deal with that? Well, over years, I just realized that a lot of times I'd go out there and throw a topwater. I don't know why certain days they wouldn't eat it, but I'd go throw that topwater and they wouldn't bite it. Pick up a wake bait and start catching fish. I never did really figure out to a degree why some days they would eat a topwater and why some days they wouldn't. I really didn't care. I'd just go through the process of figuring it out on my own, of going like, I have these two baits. I'll throw each one. Whichever one they start biting, that's what I'm going to stick with. It's crazy. It's not why we designed the Hybrid Hunter Shallow. We designed the Hybrid Hunter Shallow because of the way it works through the grass, and sometimes the grass is higher, right? And we want to work it fast, or we want to be able to work it in grass that's only a foot or two underneath the surface. Or in this point, the other day, Grass was actually, you can see it hit the surface, but it's not matted up, but it was like stringy. So there's just strings around everywhere. And this thing works for the most part with a treble hook. It's the best bait there is. But there's almost no other bait that works like that through subsurface other than a topwater. It's pretty much the only bait there is in existence that does this. So it's great. Now, could you get a swim jig to do this or certain other things? Yes, but they're all quiet. They don't have any of the noise, any of the vibration. They don't have all these qualities like this thing does. So I was throwing it and caught fish, considering I threw a lot of other stuff and did not catch anything. I threw a topwater a bunch after this, going, am I missing something? Never had a bite. It was by far the best bait on a very bad day. And I talked to a lot of people that said, because it was crazy, and even in the video, people were asking about the turnover and where they're at with the turnover. And I'm like, I talked to a buddy. There's been turnovers on quite a few lakes around here. And they were all talking about the same thing, like which ones were going through it. And they were just avoiding those lakes. I was throwing, just to let y'all know, this is my new Signature Series rod. I wasn't really going to talk about this because it doesn't really come out till 2026, early 2026. But yeah, this is the 7'6" medium heavy rod that I throw all my hybrid hunters on. We had other rods like this, like the Super Duty and stuff, but they kind of got rid of the Super Duty. And what we did was we basically took that Super Duty and just kind of made a better rod. It's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit cleaner. I tested out multiple prototypes to make sure. But this is the rod. It'll be available at Tackle Warehouse exclusive. I think they're only making like a limited edition of them. So they're going to be a little bit difficult to get. But I'll let y'all know when they come out. Once again, I just throw this out there, reel it in. Depending, I mean, I can make it kind of go right under the surface or a foot under. So just by the rise of your rod tip, you can make it kind of do what you want it to go do. But you'll call those fish up. So this is the best explanation I can tell y'all. Have y'all ever been out there when fish, especially this time of the year, fish are on shad? It's almost always in the fall. And they'll blow up. But you can throw a topwater and you can't catch them. Or they're like schooling fish. You have to throw right on them to get them to bite. Like they have to be blowing up when you throw on one. Even if it's like one fish. We call them single schoolers, right? The single schoolers. The one fish that comes up and blows up. They might do this every 5 minutes, but it's almost impossible to catch a fish on a topwater while this is going on. Well, here's why. The shad are in a big ball, okay? Now, I always knew this, but you can definitely see it on live scope, right? So the shad are in this ball, and you'll see fish underneath this ball. Now, I always knew that they were underneath it. And what was going on was they were driving, they were down here, 5, 6, 7 foot of water. Now, they could be suspended over deep water as well. But I remember it happening on Fort Gibson a lot. Oh, it made me so mad. These giants were chasing these gizzard shad. But the problem was they were in 6 foot of water blowing up. And what you would see was this just like explosion. And you could tell that they were like, it's just one of those deals. You could tell that they were down here closer to the bottom. And then when they got excited or they got one trapped or they got ones that, whatever they did, they would then move that bait fish up to the surface and then explode on it. And it used to piss me off so much because those are by far, in my opinion, even with live scope, they're hard to do. But before that, they were the hardest fish in the world to catch. By far, hands down, the hardest fish. Because they're starting down here, and you have to get their attention down here. And in all honesty, all they want to do is chase this fish up. And we don't really have baits to get their attention here and push them up. And like have them follow a bait up, knowing when that's going to happen for them to come do it. If you throw a topwater, they're not worried about it up here. They're not focused on it up here. They're focused on stuff down here to chase one up. They're small shad too on those big bait balls, same thing. You'll see the big bait ball, and even if you see it on the surface, it still goes underneath, kind of like an iceberg, right? You only see the top tip of the iceberg. you don't see how big the iceberg is underneath. So you can see a little ball of shad, but it'd be really big down here. And it might stretch down 5 feet. And those fish sometimes sit in them or underneath them. Now there's thousands of shad around them. And like I said, with live scope, you can actually see a fish or two inside those bait balls. They hide in them. And for whatever reason, trolling motor boats go by, things like that, gets one excited. And it chases one of these shad up. Or he starts chasing one and they usually go up and they explode on him. And if you're right there, I mean, if you're sitting there right there and you see it and you throw on it, you can catch it. Now that might only happen every 15 minutes because those fish are they'll hang out underneath those shad. Very, very frustrating. It's the only thing I can think of that's kind of like this, where you've got to get their attention here to bring them up here. I don't know what it is about this shallow hybrid hunter or baits like that. They just don't want something on the surface. Something is not right making all that noise that they want to go attack. But you can throw this and it's right there at the surface. It's not making all that noise, but it's making a bunch of commotion, right? Vibration, noise in the water, but not the actual surface noise. And they'll come eat it. I do not know. I'm not even going to try to explain that. That's the closest analogy I can come up with. But that's what I'd want to share with y'all. It's one of those things. You kind of have to just go out there and do it. I just have one tied on. It's easy. This time of the year, I'm going to have a Topwater tied on. I'm going to have something like that tied on. I'll still have my swim jig tied on. You still have a thunder cricket tied on. You can have different things, but I'm going to have something that goes right underneath the surface. That shallow hybrid hunter does that perfectly. Gets those fish that you think should be eating a topwater, but just aren't. That's what I want to share with y'all today. All right. I hope this gives you a little bit more of an idea or something on what to go do when you see stuff like this in the water. All right. See you guys.